The senator from the Cape and the Islands, Mr. Cyr, is recognized for the purpose of seconding the nomination.
Thank you, Mr. President, and through my colleagues and their honored guests, to the citizens of the Commonwealth. We assemble today in this glorious chamber, each of us marveling at the opportunity to serve, each of us humbled by the once-in-a-generation chance to do so in this sparkling, refurbished chamber, each of us keenly aware of the legacy of this body and the promise of what's possible in the 191st session of the Great General Court. The walls of this chamber were stripped to its foundation, as I think you all can see. The chandelier dismantled and burnished, each wooden block and beam taken apart, steamed, sanded by hand, painted and put back in place. And when this chamber was in scaffolding, we too underwent a parallel, if unplanned, renovation, and we are better for it. And I'd be remiss, Mr. President, if I did not recognize the soon-to-be new clerk who stands beside our presiding officer at the rostrum. Mr. President, when it comes to choosing who among us should lead us, it is my profound honor to second the nomination of our colleague from Ashland, Karen Spilka, to be President of the Massachusetts Senate. I first met Karen Spilka in 2011 at a gathering after the FY12 budget had been passed. I was a newly minted legislative liaison at the time, but I somehow struck up a conversation with the gentle lady from Ashland. We talked about my work in public health and our dogs. She showed me pictures of her dogs. I don't recall what else was said. I don't think we talked about mechanics, car mechanics, but I don't recall what else was said. But I distinctly remember how she made me feel, that she was genuinely interested in what I did. She was approachable with no pretense and wicked funny. I didn't imagine then that I'd be a colleague serving alongside Karen and all of you, yet 2 years ago, I found myself finding my way here. And Karen, from then on, was a constant presence, always looking out for how she could help. How can we make you successful, she'd ask. What are the priorities in your district? We can't get this done yet, but there's always another day. Let's figure it out. When I put my foot in my own mouth, as eager millennials like me are wont to do, Karen was there to throw me a life vest and shared her own colorful stumbles when she was a new member of the legislature, which is really the best sort of mentorship you can ask for. Those 2 years went by mighty fast, and in that time, Karen became more than a colleague. She became a mentor and a treasured friend. And now, at the outset of the 191st General Court, it is upon us to select who among us should lead our august body, who among us should be the champion for our work and cause. For me, I want a president of the Senate who sees the promise in each and every member, no matter their party or seniority. I want a president of the Senate who sinks her teeth into policy and cares about getting it right, not keeping up with the news cycle or scoring political points. I want a president of the Senate who is a fierce negotiator. I want a president who can navigate her way through the stakeholders and egos in this building, who transcends the status quo of Beacon Hill politics with the skills of a mediator and a seasoned social worker. I want a president of the Senate who listens to staff, who goes out of her way to be invested in them. I want a president who understands that the people who keep our offices and this building humming are as essential as anything else. I want a president of the Senate who sees all parts of the Commonwealth, who appreciates the problems that face Pittsfield or Provincetown aren't secondary to those communities geographically closer to the Hill. I want a Senate president who knows what it's like to be left out. And I want a president of the Senate who is a woman. My friends, we need a president of the Senate who believes in uplifting every member, but who has the grit to go toe-to-toe for what this chamber passes and to get those actions signed into law. We need a president of the Senate who listens to her constituents and isn't afraid to be challenged by new conceptions and novel ways of seeing the world. We need a president of the Senate who is an ally to the forgotten. We need a president who is a fierce protector of justice, especially at this time when the values that make this Commonwealth and our country truly great are under assault. And in Karen Spilka, we have a president of the Senate who has a bevy of accomplishments that have fundamentally changed the structures of the Commonwealth and our society so that all people, women, children, those across the developmental spectrum, immigrants and their children, transgender people, the most vulnerable among us, they have equal access and opportunity. In Karen Spilka, we have a President of the Senate who will work with any of us on a good idea, however complicated or minute. In Karen, we have a President of the Senate who has a bold vision for our work and our Commonwealth. In Karen Spilka, we have a President of the Senate who understands that leadership isn't bravado or in hearing the sound of one's own voice. In Karen, we have a President who knows that true leadership takes knowing oneself, your flaws and your strengths, that effective leadership takes facilitation, and true leadership raises others up, not just simply advances one's own fortunes. In Karen, we have a President who brings humor and a joie de vivre into this essential work. In Karen Spilka, we have a President of the Senate who can take the big, pressing dreams that each of us bring to this body and to work tirelessly to ensure that bold new ideas don't end up as empty rhetoric, but rather become something truly transformational and are enacted into law. My friends, the walls of this storied chamber are now primed and painted with an inch of historic accuracy, and I'm told dating to 1900, but our Senate is a far cry from the one that first assembled here in 1900. It is fitting in this moment that we be led by a woman with the strength, wisdom, poise, and sense of fairness as Karen Spilka. Our colleague from Ashland is invested in our successes. She shares the dreams of our constituents and will bring a needed urgency and diligence to the work that lies ahead. Mr. President, I stand here today honored and excited for what's possible to second the nomination for the Senator from Ashland, Karen Spilka, to be our Senate President. Thank you.